Ooh. It is the end that the moment has been prepared for. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Doctor Who audio fan commentary on Logopolis, or Logopolis, which is Tom Baker's final story as the fourth Doctor, his 42nd story. I mean, wow, still holds the record for the longest number of years in the part, and most amount of stories thus far. I doubt anyone will come close personally, but there we go. So, Logopolis, this is the end of his 7th and final season. Wow, it's certainly been a long journey with Tom Baker, but here we are. This is a 4-part story, and we're just doing this as fans. This is just a bit of fun. You know, we're not doing this for financial gain or anything. Can't show the image of the story for legal reasons, so we have parts of the audio, but I would recommend, if you want to follow along with us, put your DVD or Blu-ray into your player and then press 0, or no, put it on the 00 mark and then press play when we press play. Bit awkward, but unfortunately we don't have the the budget or the rights to do it the other way. But yes, this is also because of the recent release of the Doctor Who Season 18 Blu-ray set. Well, the standard version anyway. So, yeah. I will probably do a roundup of the story itself when we finish watching it. So, Jack, would you like to say anything before we kick this into gear?
Would you like a jelly, baby?
Oh, yes. So, do you want to do the countdown, or shall I do it?
I'll do it if that's all right.
Go ahead, Monsieur.
3, 2, 1, play.
Shit. Oh, sorry. Can we start again? Fucking controller. Just get it back to 0. It played and then it stopped and then it played again. I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
Do you want to do the countdown this time?
That's fine. I'm happy for you to do the countdown. That's not a problem. Sorry. I don't know what happened to my controller.
You ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready now. Sorry about that.
All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
Ooh, look at the quality.
Yeah. Tom Baker's last story, which, you know, quite incredible if you think about it, because he was nearly the Doctor for 10 years. I mean, he played it for 7, which is the best part of a decade. So, yeah, it was a long, long time.
I mean, he could have gone on to do more, but I think eventually he would have probably had to have left. They would have probably wanted to see someone else in the part, but he's still to this day very much loved by a lot of fans and considered the best, if not one of the best Doctors. I mean, it's hard to not love Tom Baker as the Doctor.
Yeah. Interesting, they actually used a real police box on the side of the road for this story.
I mean, Logopolis is a good story. It's a good ending for Tom Baker. I mean, I kind of wanted it to be more epic, like, because it is the end of such a long era. But you know what? After all the fucking shit that we've suffered through in the Leisure Hive and Warriors Gate and some of the other stories in this season, this will do. You know, at the end of the day, this is one of the better stories of the season. So, yeah, Tom goes out on a good note, at least. Not a great note, but a good note.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the way the story begins, like seeing more of the TARDIS, and you know, the Doctor is there's sort of a, you know, the subject of the story is entropy and decay and things getting older, and you know, kind of like that theme going out throughout the story that, you know, things must come to an end, and it's kind of you know, closing off the Fourth Doctor's era, because yeah, I mean, I think this season, you know, there were a lot of changes with season 18. You know, J&T became the producer. Tom Baker's outfit changed. The title sequence changed. The theme tune, the companions, and you know, by this point in the show, we no longer had K9. We no longer had Romana. It was the Doctor and Adric, and you know, with the story, you could tell that you know, things are changing, because we'll get Nissa coming back in this story, and this is the introduction for Tegan. So I think it was probably the right time for Tom Baker to leave. It was probably the right time for him to go, because you know, he'd been playing the part for 7 years, you know, 7 seasons, and you know, and like Tom Baker said, you know, he'd done all he could with the part, so there was not much more for him, you know, to do.
Exactly.
So,
and actually, far better to leave at a time when the show is still at decent quality, because we all know what was coming after after this. And far better to leave when people miss you as well. Like, you don't want to overstay your welcome. And I think Tom Baker, like you say, he did leave at the right time, and he didn't overstay his welcome. He had a nice long run, a very epic run as the Doctor. There's no way that you can forget what he contributed to the show. But I'm not surprised he was kind of driven out. Well, sort of driven out by J&T, and he was, you know, decided to leave. I think it was probably an easy decision for him to go. Plus, Lala Ward left as well, so I guess that was also kind of kind of further cemented his decision to go. But this is also the introduction, I believe, to Anthony Ainley as the Master. I think, which is it's nice that Tom Baker got to face the Master one more time in his proper, you know, reincarnated form since the Deadly Assassin. So I appreciate that about the story as well.
yeah, I mean, Anthony Ainley, he did appear in a previous story at the very end as the Master, but yeah, this is the first full story where he plays the Master, and yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to bring back the Master. I think that was J&T's decision, you know, to introduce a new Doctor, have a trilogy of Master stories. So you had Keeper, Track, and Logopolis, and then afterwards you had Castrovalva Davison's first story. But but I mean, I think this is a good send off for Tom, and I think overall as a season, this was definitely an improvement over season 17, which I thought was a very mixed bag. I think the stories in this were pretty good for the most part. The only one I didn't really care for was Leisure Hive, which, you know, the less said about that, the better. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a step up from 17. Like, but it's not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of changes, of course, but it's definitely an improvement on the writing front from the previous season. But yeah, I mean, introducing Tegan in this one though, it's quite bizarre. Like, I mean, I guess they wanted to give the audience a taste of her, but at the same time, this is like so late in the Fourth Doctor's era. There's just not much point, because she's not going to establish any kind of rapport or like that will last long enough with him, because he's leaving. But so I would have just saved her introduction to Castrovalva with Davison, because she is more of a Davison companion anyway. But yeah, it's nice to actually have the attention taken off of Adric though, for once. So I'll say that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I will say about Logopolis. One of the complaints I have is that, you know, you kind of take away a little bit of focus from the Fourth Doctor by introducing Tegan in his last story, and it's kind of pointless. Like, if you're going to introduce Tegan, you should have introduced her earlier in the season, or like you said, wait until Davison's first season, you know, his first story, to introduce the new companion. But yeah, I mean, apparently, you know, Janet Fielding, you know, when she got the role, she didn't really get on with Tom Baker, and I think Tom Baker kind of, with this story and this season, you know, you can kind of tell that, you know, he was having some problems behind the scenes, because he was ill when he made this season. He was quite ill, and he didn't really agree with a lot of the changes that J&T brought in. So I think, you know, those reasons is why he left. And I also think it was the fact that Lala Ward left as well. Like, he had this new, batch of companions that he didn't really connect with as much as Lala Ward. So I think that was another reason why he left as well, because he felt
The
like
whole
all these.
yeah, the whole sort of makeup of the show was changing, and he didn't really fit in with the new crowd. And yeah, not that that was his fault, but yeah, I think you could see that James, he thought it's time for some fresh young blood, and maybe Tom wasn't a part of that. But still, 7 seasons, that's nothing to sniff about. That is a amazing run. And he left knowing that he'd accomplished a lot, whereas like Colin, Colin Baker was sacked, and that's a far worse way to go. So no matter what happens, I'm sure Tom is very, very grateful for his time on the show and his 7 years in the part. And I don't think any future Doctor is going to come close to that legacy. Even though Tom isn't my favorite Doctor, he's my second favorite, and I always appreciate how his devotion to the role. But I think you can tell by this point he's ready to go. I mean, he's still giving a good performance, but I think he's ready to go. You can see in his face he's kind of accepted that this is it now. He's leaving, and he doesn't regret his decision.
Yeah. But I mean, the good thing about Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor is that he still plays the Fourth Doctor in Big Finish audio, and if you listen to the Big Finish audios, they reunite him with his companions from his era, and there's new stories. So, I mean, that's one great thing is that you've got all this stuff with him on TV, but you also have all the audio ventures that he's still doing now. So, yeah, I mean, if you combine the Big Finish audio and his television stories, then he's by far the longest serving Doctor. But yeah.
Adric's okay in this one. I mean, Adric's 50-50 for me. There are stories where I like him, and there are stories where I find him really annoying and detestable. Like, he's really good in Earthshock. That's definitely his best one, and I'm not just saying that because of the ending. But I think in this one he's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think him and Tom ever really. You can tell they didn't get on, and there's not really a rapport between the Fourth Doctor and Adric. I mean, he's definitely. Adric definitely fits better with Davison, and that will come to fruition in the next few stories. But yeah,
I mean, Matthew Waterhouse said that Tom Baker told him to piss off at one point because Matthew Waterhouse was trying to give Tom Baker acting advice, and I don't think Tom Baker appreciated that. So yeah, I think him and Tom Baker. Didn't really get on, and Tom Baker didn't really get on with. I don't think he really got on with Sarah Sutton or Janet Fielding just because of all the behind the scenes drama and his relationship with Lala Ward and the fact that he was leaving the show. I don't think he was.
It was a bad time for the politics of the show. But Sam just put in the comments. He says he agrees with some people that they say that season 18 feels like a Davison season. I can see what you mean, but I don't think you can really say that it feels like a Davison season because Davison hadn't been cast yet. So the whole makeup of the show is not written around Davison yet. They're clearly trying to edge their way to a new Doctor, but I mean, obviously by this story they've cast Davison. But when season 18 begins, it's not really written for a new Doctor, if that makes sense. Even though the kind of other aspects of the show are changing, like the titles and the music and the feel of the show. But I don't know if maybe I'm reading too far into that, but I just don't think it's fair to say it's a Davison season. Let's just say it's an 80s season. It feels very 80s.
Yeah, no, I mean, Davison even said when he did his first season that it was written for Tom Baker, so they had to rewrite the scripts for him. And I mean, I can understand what Sam's saying that it's a different showrunner, it's a different feel to the show. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't exactly say it feels like a Davison season, but yeah, I mean, one thing I do appreciate about this season over season 17 is that JNT, he did take the source material more seriously because they were sort of camping it up in season 17 with some of the stories like the Horns of Naimon and Nightmare of Eden and Creature from the Pit. Some of those stories did kind of get ridiculous and over the top and silly. So I think JNT was right to sort of I think JNT was right to take the show more seriously and have the storylines be more serious. I mean, maybe you could say that was at the cost of maybe some of the Fourth Doctor's humor, but at the same time,
It's
I
the
think it works better.
Watcher.
I think it is serious, but yes, the Watcher. Yeah.
I love your well, so I don't want to sing your impression of the Watcher, but the shot of you as the Watcher in our sketch for my Logopolis review, you just stuck 2 fingers up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Watcher. I mean, I always really liked the concept of the Watcher, and that's one of the reasons why I called my channel the Watcher for a few years was because.
Did you? I never noticed that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it made sense because, I watch TV shows and movies and I review them and, call it after this character. But, I mean, I do like the stuff here with the Doctor and Adric. Like, he's trying to fix the chameleon circuit and he's measuring the TARDIS and he's going to take it to Logopolis. But, yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I mean, I do kind of like the sort of sense of impending doom in this story. Like the Doctor, he sees the Watcher, and then later on he finds out that he's going to regenerate. So throughout the whole story, he's kind of anticipating his own death, kind of like the 10th Doctor in End of Time. But
yeah, I do agree with that. And but what I would say is they could have gone further. They could have made this much more epic. Like I think actually making this story 6 parts would have really made this a really great swan song for Tom Baker. I think doing it as 4 parts is selling it short because it feels a bit too brisk in places. I would have liked the battle between the Doctor and the Master to go on a bit longer. I honestly think that that's what should have happened. And the more they built up to his regeneration, it would have been even sadder. I mean, it still works. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like it was a slight missed opportunity. But this is a good story, it is solid,
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I mean, that's one thing that I disagree with what JNT did was that he made this season 7 4-part stories. So for this whole season, we have no 6-parters, and I think he should have
just Leisure Hive and haven't done a 2 parts for this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think honestly he should have stuck to the old format of 5 4-parters and a 6-parter to close off the season. Because I do agree. I mean, it is Tom Baker's last story, and if you made it 6 parts, you could have developed some more of the plot points and character motivations and stuff like that, and you could have given more room for a more emotional exit. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, I think Christopher H. Bidmead, like, I think he does a good job with some of the stuff in the story because I mean, it would be hard to write Tom Baker's last story. He has to bring back the Master. He has to say goodbye to Tom. He has to bring in a new Doctor. So, I mean, I think the elements here, there's more good stuff going on in the story than there is bad stuff. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a perfect story. I don't think it's as good as the first 3 regeneration stories that we had, 10th Planet, War Games, or Planet of the Spiders. But I still think it's a pretty solid send-off. I mean, I personally would have preferred, though, if maybe Robert Holmes wrote the script. Like, I think, to be honest, Tom Baker deserved a story like The Caves of Androzani to go out on. Like, I mean, because, he's such a great Doctor, he deserved a really great story like that. But I do like this acting here from Tom Baker. Like, when he sees the Watcher, he's kind of spooked. He's kind of freaked out by that. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially because Tom is the longest serving Doctor, and I do think he deserved a bit more. I mean, this is at least good. At least it's not shit. Thank God. But but still, I mean, the Caves of Androzani was just so good and just so epic. I mean, even though that was only 4 parts, you know, they still could have done something a bit more with this. But I think if they focused it more on Tom, because I think the mistake they made was introducing Tegan and reintroducing the Master. Maybe there was too many elements here that should have been saved for other stories, but still, for what it is, it's pretty solid. And like the final confrontation is pretty good with the Doctor and the Master. Say what you will about the fall, but the fight is good.
I mean, one thing I do like about this story, though, is you get to see Tegan's family. Like, you get to see her aunt. Like, I don't think in the classic series before we ever saw a companion's relative. Like, we never saw, like, Sarah Jane's mother or, like, Joe Grant's father or anything like that. This is the first time in the show, I think, where we've seen a companion's relative. And this is Tegan's aunt, which is interesting. And, it's interesting how she just kind of stumbles upon the TARDIS. Like, she's on the way to Heathrow to become an air stewardess, and then the car breaks down, and now we have the scene where she enters the TARDIS. So, I mean, it is interesting to see her aunt in this story, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's nice when they every so often introduce companions, relatives. They do it a lot in the new series, of course, but yeah, nice to see Tegan's aunt.
Yeah. I mean, the burgundy outfit, I think it's kind of grown on me. I mean, I really don't like I don't like the question marks, but I think the burgundy outfit, for his last season, it's okay. I mean, I prefer the multicolored outfit, but I prefer the multicolored scarf and all that. But I think, for his last season, changing up his outfit, maybe it kind of reflects the fact that, this doctor's sort of coming towards the end of his life cycle, so he's, decided to wear more somber outfit. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But even saying that, and that is a good idea, I just feel like Tom looks, certainly in the Leisure Hive, looks very uncomfortable in the costume. He doesn't feel right in it, and I don't think it suits his Doctor. I mean, it's okay to look at, but you just think, man, I wish he was wearing the old one, But still, it is what it is. I mean, it's not the most ridiculous costume in the show. We'll get to that later.
And this is the first time we hear the cloister bell, which they'll use in the new series as well, David Tennant and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it
becomes more prominent in the new series, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, as for Tom Baker's outfit in this season, I apparently didn't like his new outfit, but I mean, JNT, he said to the costume designer June Hudson that she could get rid of the scarf as well if she wanted to, but thankfully she decided to keep the scarf, and I'm glad, because if Tom Baker didn't have a scarf in his last season, that would have just been outrageous. I mean, it's his signature piece of clothing as a Doctor, is that that long scarf that he wears. So I'm glad that she had the common sense to keep the scarf when JNT said you can get rid of it if you want to. But yeah.
I honestly think that Tom probably would have walked out of the show if he didn't wear his scarf.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the stuff, the TARDIS inside the TARDIS. We've seen that before in the Time Monster, but interesting. Yeah, you have the Master there. Interesting POV shot. I mean, they kind of build up the return of the Master in this story, because for most of Part 1, you don't see the Master. It's only like Part 2 and 3 where he sort of comes to be more prominent. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Ainley's good as the Master here, but I don't think his best performance will be until his last. I think he really grows in the role. I mean, here he's fine, but he does come off as a Delgado impersonator.
I mean, I think Logopolis is one of his best performances, because I don't think he's camping it up as much. Like with stories like Castrovalva and some stories in the Davison era like Time Flight, he's really like camping it up with the evil laugh, and they give him these ridiculous disguises. Here he's not wearing any stupid disguises. He's not camping it up as much. I think Survival is his best performance, but I think this will probably be my favorite performance after that story because
Yeah.
I mean they focus on the Master more, and he's not camping it up to 11, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, Anthony Ainley will become a great master, but this is only his first performance, so I still think he's got a way to go. But it's interesting to see how many times he pops up in the Davison era. They kind of rely on him a bit, I think, in Davison's era.
Yeah. I do like this first part, but I think maybe there's a bit of padding here. It's just sort of Tegan and the Doctor and Adric sort of farting about in the TARDIS for the first part.
Well, it's almost over.
I mean, that's a nice cliffhanger. I do like that.
Interesting, interesting concept of the story, and I like the world of Logopolis. Like the planet when they go to it is really quite spectacular, actually.
Yeah. And one thing I will say about the story is, the pacing is pretty good for it. It's not a boring story, which is good. I mean, it's Tom Baker's last. You want the story to be, have a decent pace to it and be engaging, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a masterpiece, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It definitely ramps up in the next 3 parts.
I do really like that rendition of the theme. And of course,
actually,
this year... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, actually, for the Doctor Who fans who don't know, although most of them probably do, speaking of exits, it's been announced that Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall are leaving Doctor Who. So I imagine is very good news for a lot of people. But yeah, I haven't watched a lot of Jodie's era, so I honestly don't care. But that's just my opinion. Sorry, you wanted to say something. I'm not sure where Jack has gone. I'm sure he'll be back soon.
Just getting a drink.
Oh, why do you say so? Funny joke.
What, I need to tell you everything?
Yes. The Watcher.
You're talking about Jodie Whittaker leaving. I don't really think many people will be shedding a tear for her departure as much as people were probably upset when Tom Baker or David Tennant left. But yeah,
No, well, even some people were quite sad to see Matt Smith go as well. But yeah, I mean the shows have got to a point where it's really losing a lot of fans and a lot of support. So it's in a bad place, and I think maybe people are just excited for a bit of change, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, Tom Baker. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, Tom's giving a pretty great performance. I mean, this season is probably, as an overall season, contains some of his weaker performances, but he's still good. But yeah, I can sort of, at this point, he's getting a bit more into it. But I think in the first part, he did feel a bit like he was a bit tired, but he was still kind of going with it. But he's ready to go. He's definitely ready to leave. You can sort of.
Yeah, this is a bit silly. Yeah. Help! I've got a bike on top of me. Yeah. One thing I do like about this story is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack by Paddy King's England is really good. It has some of my favorite music from the Fourth Doctor era.
Yeah, the music's pretty good. Certainly at the end when we get to the regeneration.
I mean, speaking about Tom Baker, in this season and in this story, like despite maybe some of his performances in this season not being as good as some of the previous seasons, I still think he's very good as a Doctor, and I still think he always tried. Like even in stories like The Leisure Hive, he still tried his best despite the circumstances. And I think for me, Tom Baker is definitely my favorite Doctor, just because he, not because he was the longest serving Doctor, just because I think he really inhabited the role. He definitely portrayed the Doctor in an alien way. He's definitely, I think, the most alien out of all the Doctors. He's very eccentric, and I love the fact that his Doctor, 1 minute can be, joking about, and then the next minute he could be deadly serious. And I think Tom Baker, he had some great stories in his era. He's some great companions, and I think Tom Baker always tried his best despite the circumstances. And I think he's a great Doctor, and definitely my favorite of all the Doctors. But yeah,
I mean Tom Baker is amazing. There's no, there's no denying. I mean, what he brought to the role was just totally fantastic, and in every way. And all 7 of his seasons have great stuff in them. And his era is the mammoth era of the show, but it's certainly one of the most entertaining. that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has one of the strongest eras of the show. Like, some great stories in there, like Genesis of the Daleks, Brain and Morbius, City of Death. Some really great classics in his era. And I think it must have been quite a shock for people when Tom Baker announced that he was leaving back in 1981, because I mean he played the part for 7 years, longer than anyone else, and it must have been quite a a landmark in television when he left, because he's the longest serving actor in the show. In terms of cast members, he's the guy who's stayed there the longest, and it must have been quite a shock for kids who just grew up only knowing Tom Baker as a Doctor when he finally decided to leave the show. But
Yeah. Well, it must have been hard for Tom to announce he was leaving, but I mean, part of him obviously was ready to go, and I think part of him was so fed up with what J&T was doing. But at the same time, he loved this part. It was his life, and he even off screen, he brought a lot of joy to people. And yeah, to give it up is not easy. But I think he knew he was going to have to give it up at some point anyway. But J&T would get rid of him. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of look at his face there. You can kind of, I can kind of see. Yeah, he doesn't look well either. So I think his health obviously has to come first as well. And he did a lot for the part, like you said. He couldn't have given more to the part. So I think he left at definitely the right time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he was quite ill when he made this season. He lost a lot of weight, and yeah, I mean, he had seven great years in the role, and 7 seasons, and I think it was time for him to step down and hand it over to someone else. And then Davison came in, and then we had Colin Baker and McCoy, and then the classic series ended. But yeah, I mean, I think Davison had big shoes to fill coming after Tom Baker, because Baker had been there so long and he left his stamp on the show. So when Davison came in, he had to reinvent that part, and I think it was probably tough for Davison coming after such a popular Doctor, kind of like Matt Smith coming after David Tennant was probably quite tough for him to establish himself in the role. But they both did, eventually. But yeah,
I mean, I'll never say Davison is one of my favorite Doctors, but he did have a hard job. So I definitely sympathise with him. Is it EastEnders?
Yeah.
Had enough of Doctor Who and EastEnders together.
This is one thing in the story I think is a bit stupid. When the Doctor, he's going to try and get rid of the intruder by materializing the TARDIS underneath the Thames and then open the doors to flush the intruder out. It just doesn't really make much sense, but yeah.
Yeah, a bit weird, but okay, JNT.
I mean, funnily enough, talking about Tom Baker, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad was on film 4 earlier today, and that's the film that helped him get the role of the Doctor, because Barry Letts saw that film, and Tom Baker was the main villain in that, and that was one of the main reasons why he decided to cast him as the Doctor.
Oh, poor Tegan. Not her day today.
One thing I will say, I mean, Janet Fielding, it is nice to have an Australian in the show, because Janet Fielding's from Australia, and we've never really had a Australian Doctor Who companion, so it's nice that we have an Aussie companion in this story, and with the 4th Doctor and the 5th Doctor, but yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, the 5th Doctor is such a departure from this.
Yeah. I think my trouble with Davison is that his Doctor, he's too human. Like, he doesn't have the eccentricities of, William Hartnell or Tom Baker or even John Pertwee and Patrick Troughton. I think his Doctor's a little bit bland in comparison to Tom Baker's Doctor in terms of his personality, but yeah.
Yeah. It is nice to have a range of different companions, although most of them have been, quite a lot of them have been English, but we haven't had an Australian yet. Welcome, Tegan.
And there's the Master.
Nice location.
Yeah. They've done a really good job with the Blu-ray. Like, they've remastered all the videotape and the film segments, and the film segments especially, they look really good on Blu-ray. They've done a really good job with making the picture quality better.
Yeah, they do, don't they? And it is actually very clear. Oh, the Watcher! Oh.
Yes. I don't want to
so
go.
It's kind of like building up to, the 4th Doctor's kind of impending doom. He kind of will realise that that's all a prelude to his regeneration.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in a Doctor Who story where the Doctor knows that he's going to regenerate, because Hartnell on the 10th Planet, he didn't know he was going to regenerate. Same with Troughton in the War Games, and same with Pertwee in Planet of Spiders. This is the first time that the Doctor, he knows he's going to regenerate. He knows that his, impending doom is coming, and he's going to have to face his fear, as the 3rd Doctor said, and sort of bite the bullet. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I do like this scene. I do like the scene on the bridge where he's talking to the Watcher, and you never find out what they're saying to each other, but you realize the Doctor, he finds out from the Watcher that he's going to regenerate, and it's something they did again with Tennant in End of Time. The Doctor in End of Time, he knows he's going to regenerate, and he's really just he's basically in fear of it. Like in End of Time, he's really scared of regenerating, and he doesn't want to regenerate. And the 4th Doctor, he just kind of has to accept the fact that he's going to regenerate. But
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's good to sort of build up to it and show how the Doctor sort of emotionally takes it in. But it's it's not necessary all the time.
Yeah.
Logopolis.
Oh, yeah. So you must be prepared, Doctor.
The moment has been prepared for.
I mean, I think, you know, Tom Baker, the fact that he looks a little bit more sort of fed up. I mean, it kind of works for the story because I guess you could say by this point in his life, that incarnation's so old, he's kind of fed up of life and he's sort of kind of waiting to die. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you do get that vibe off Tom anyway. I think off screen he probably was a bit fed up of all this, of this particular season. But yeah, I suppose it does work for this story, you know, and with the way they build up to his regeneration.
Yeah.
Look, if you're going after this one, I'm going to do the democracy is ever in charge of this shit.
Oh. Love the look on Tom Baker's face.
Pretty nice sets actually for the planet.
Yeah, Logopolis, yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting how these guys sort of keep the universe in balance, like their calculations sort of keep the universe together, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're a very interesting race of people.
Yeah.
Tegan Joe Blank, and I'm not answering any more questions until you tell me exactly who you are. I imagine.
You know, it's funny. When they were coming up with the names for Tegan, they were trying to find popular Australian names, and one of them was Tegan, and the other was Jovanka. And someone wrote it down as Tegan Jovanka, and that became her name. But, yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Tegan is a nice name.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute, Doctor.
I mean, Tegan kind of reminds me a little bit of Donna in some ways because, like, both Donna and Tegan, they do sort of like to talk quite a bit. They are, you know, both of them are, you know, are loudmouths and they boss around the Doctor a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, they do have that sort of talkative, authoritative quality, but not like Clara where it's controlling, but they do put the Doctor in his place when needs are warranted.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about Tom Baker in this story is, you know, despite like, yeah, all the stuff going on behind the scenes, you know, you could tell he's still, you know, trying his best, and I think he's pretty good in this story. And yeah, I mean, I mean, the story's kind of bittersweet for me because, you know, he's my favorite Doctor, but you know, the time had come for him to lead the show, and yeah, and then Davison would take over, but
yeah. And it's, you know, it is a good final performance, don't get me wrong, and the story's entertaining. But yeah, good things must end eventually.
yeah.
Why don't we proceed to business immediately?
I mean, it's hard to believe, but yeah, this story is 40 years old now. It's been 40 years since Tom Baker left Doctor Who, but yeah.
It's crazy. Because he's now in his late 80s, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 87, I think, this year. So yeah.
How old was he when he did this story?
He was 47.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, he took over the role when he was 40, so he left in his late 40s by the time he did this story. There is an option as well on the Blu-ray for CGI effects, and I like some of the new effects that they added in for the story, which you can watch as an optional extra. But yeah,
Yeah. No, it's nice that they made a few enhancements, but I'm glad they didn't change too much.
yeah. I mean, one thing I do think is a little bit weird, like these guys, they've that thing that's on the back of their head. I guess it's like their brain or something. Just looks a little weird. That's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. They live in all these like huts.
Yeah, the world looks very simple.
We saw in the street to work it out themselves. Without technology.
Block transfer computation is a complex discipline, way beyond the capabilities of simple machines. It requires all the subtleties of the living mind. Is that not so?
Yeah. Adric, I mean, he's a mathematical genius apparently, so I bet he'd fit in well at Logopolis.
Yeah, God. I wouldn't want to see him at any kind of science or maths convention.
Uh-oh, the master turned him into an Action Man toy.
Amp it up. Action Man.
Explanation for this.
Really feel like an expedition.
Try.
Andrew, you explain.
Just let Adric explain.
This red ship was deliberately disguised as a police.
I mean, it's interesting as well. The master's using his TCE again, a tissue compression eliminator. Like, you know, he shrinks people down with it into like a miniature size.
Yeah.
Makes them all tiny.
Of course, the Thanos project. This isn't a replica of the Thanos computer room. It is a perfectly logical copy. I always thought you underestimated
Well.
the possibility of block transfer computation.
Would you like a jelly, baby?
Pretty good, actually. Would you agree that the sets are well designed?
Yeah, I think the sets are really well designed, and I like the costumes as well. I like the costume that the Monitor's wearing and the Logopolitans wear as well.
Yes. Yes.
What's a Thanos? Ancient Greek lighthouse.
The lighthouse?
We're nearly halfway through, so this story is zipping by, which is good.
Yeah, it's pretty brisk. I mean, it is the last story for Tom, so they're not going to, you know, they know how to pace it.
Yeah. I quite like the outfit Janet Fielding gets to wear, that air hostess outfit, the purple one. Looks quite good in her.
You don't want them to follow the target.
I mean, it must be quite emotional for the Doctor in a lot of ways when he has to regenerate, because, you know, like the 10th Doctor, you know, he got used to that incarnation, and he was very upset to say goodbye to that regeneration. Like, you know, when he's talking to Will and, you know, he's ranting at him, like, you could tell that, you know, even though he doesn't mean it, you could tell it's very emotional for him to say goodbye to that incarnation, because, you know, he feel like he could do a lot more with that, you know, regeneration, and he doesn't want to go, you know, he doesn't want to say goodbye. So it must be quite emotional for the Doctor, you know, when he does regenerate, because even though he's the same guy, his personality and his appearance and everything completely changes, you know, and yeah.
Honestly, a lot less of it. Can you give me some idea how long we're going to be delayed? Sorry. Right, I'm upset. Wouldn't you be?
I'm going to miss my flight.
To do.
Break out the Barbie, mate.
Did you get here?
But yeah, Nissa just turns up out of nowhere.
She's the friend
They explain that the Watcher brought her there, but yeah.
Oh, the Watcher read the script ahead of time.
I mean, she wasn't initially gonna return, but I think John Nathan Turner liked her so much in Keep Her Tracking that he decided to keep her on as a companion.
Uh-oh. The TARDIS is shrinking.
Honey, I Shrunk the TARDIS!
The Doctor's in there.
Oh,
Terrible acting from Matthew Waterhouse.
yeah. They should rename that. They should rename this Honey, I Shrunk the TARDIS. Tom Baker.
Tom Baker. Sad to see him go, but you know, it was a good exit. Certainly,
He's not gone.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying he's not gone yet.
Nearly. Well, yeah. I mean, the next 2 episodes are where I think the story gets sort of more interesting.
I mean, is there anything like the thing you want to say so far about it, or?
Yeah, it's been a great build-up. Don't get me wrong. Again, there are things about it which are a bit weird, like the fact that Tegan's been brought into the story. Nissa just turned up out of nowhere, which we'll find out more about later. Tom seems to be kind of more perky now. He was a bit bored, I think, in the first part, but you know, he pulls it out of the bag for his last story. What can I say? It's pretty well directed, I think. But now we get to the sort of meat of the story, and obviously the Master will reappear. Yeah, it's gonna be sad saying goodbye to Tom.
Yeah. It's directed by Peter Grimwade, the same guy who directed Earthshock, and also the same guy who wrote Time Flight. I mean, when you get season 19 on Blu-ray, we may have to rant on that story, Time Flight.
Oh, we don't have to. We could just pretend that it doesn't exist. That's what I do. No, to be fair, maybe. And season 19 will be the next one I'll get.
Yeah. Oh, it's a TARDIS playset.
There must be something you can do to put him right.
Take the machine to the central register.
Nice little TARDIS model there that they have to carry around.
Yeah. Some good visual effects for this story.
Logopolis is at stake.
Yeah. Yes, land the TARDIS, land the bloody thing.
Fuck. Warp speed, Captain.
Beam me up, Scotty. Yeah. I mean, where's Don Corleone when you need him?
There he is.
There's the Master.
Welcome aboard, Anthony Ainley.
A nice little one-liner there. Last I've cut you down to size. I mean, it is great to bring back the Master because, you know, there was a long time there when the Master wasn't in the show. Like after Roger Delgado unfortunately passed away, you know, they decided to give the Master a break, and then they brought him back for Deadly Assassin, and he's originally going to be in Talons of Wing Chiang, but they decided to change that, and then, you know, JNT decided, let's bring him back to send off the Fourth Doctor, and I think it was the right decision, because we hadn't seen the Master in the show for like 5 years, and it was nice to have him return after a long absence.
Yeah, it's always nice when they do that with a character, especially like, yeah, as you say, him, and then also the break, who sort of left the show for a while and then came back. That was lovely.
Yeah, and I think, you know, having the Master in the Fourth Doctor's final story works because, the Master is the Doctor's arch enemy, and they're old friends and rivals. So it makes sense that the Master's trying to mess around with the Doctor. He's got a new body now, and he's causing a lot of chaos. So it's nice that he comes back for this story and gets more to do.
Somewhere in some routine, somewhere. Monitor, I still don't see why you need all these people, right?
Oh, shut up, Adric.
Yeah.
You know it all.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is worst acting is probably in Time Flight and Castrovalva, where he's in that web and the Master's got him. Yeah. I mean, I think it was good to bring back the Master for the story, but I think it was unnecessary to have him in Davison's first story, Castrovalva. It just kind of seems like they put him in Davison's first story just for the sake of it, and it would have been nice if, they had a different enemy for Davison's first story, but yeah.
Sonic projectors. What are they for? They must be creating a temporary zone of stasis around the tiles. I don't really understand it.
Oh, Nissa. I like Nissa. She's a good companion.
Yeah. I like her outfit as well, that tracking outfit that she wears.
And, she's
uh,
probably my favourite Davison companion. Actually, no. Well, maybe Tegan is, but yeah, Nissa's pretty good. She's not far behind.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Nissa is that she's quite a smart companion, and she doesn't overreact or anything. She's kind of, I guess she's sort of the voice of reason. Like, I think sometimes she's more mature than the Doctor and Tegan and Adric. Sometimes, she's a lot more level-headed than they are. But yeah.
Oh, as it's Adric who takes over the show.
Yeah. It's Doctor Who Adric, not Adric Who.
I found out like Tegan's just going with the whole thing. Not long ago, she met the Doctor, and now she's like talking about time and everything, and it's like, geez, surely you'd still be trying to get over the shock of it being bigger on the inside.
Well, I suppose if she was just sort of, I suppose if you spent the whole story with her and she couldn't comprehend anything, then it kind of would have taken away from the story because you're sort of trying to focus on it being Tom's last one. But yeah.
Yeah. Murder.
Oh, yeah, well done, Adric. Yeah, of course it's murder. Stating the bloody obvious. That's what Adric does.
Yeah. For someone who's very smart, he can be incredibly thick sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Tom, why couldn't you have stayed on for another 7 years? Yeah. Oh, joking.
That would have probably been a bit overkill.
No, I was joking.
It's the Watcher.
Let's return to the central register quickly.
Tegan. Nissa.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say is, like, with Davison's first season, I do think the TARDIS is a little bit overcrowded. But I don't really think you needed 3 companions. Like, maybe just got rid of Adric and had Tegan and Nissa, or just had Tegan with the Doctor. I don't really think you needed 3 companions.
Jack, because they killed Adrix.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was at the end of Davison's first season. But, with Davison's, first season, you did have a lot of companions in there.
Yeah. Although sadly, I mean, Earthshock should have been the finale easily, and they should have taken out Time Flight.
Yeah. Time shite. Yeah. Ugh.
So we won't eventually help you from now.
Oh, Tom, we love you. We miss you.
Ah, yes. Something along those lines.
Oh.
The mark of the master.
Yeah. I mean, this really is an end of an era because it's the end of the Fourth Doctor's time in the show, and
Here somewhere.
yeah, a lot of change going on here. So yeah.
Yeah, every, oh, fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I'm a bit tired.
That's all right.
With those figures, you will be able to restore.
Those figures.
I like your figures, Tegan.
Ass.
Tegan, you've got some great digits there.
I mean, I don't know if really even Nissa is that relevant to the story. Maybe both Tegan and Nissa could have been saved for Castrovalva, but oh well.
Oh, I mean, they do use this stuff here because she thinks the Masters are Father Tremas
Yeah.
because he's taking his body.
I am the master, and you will fuck me.
Uh-oh.
Because that's not creepy.
I mean, I know the Master's taking the body of Tremas, but I mean, Nissa comes across as a bit thick. I mean, he looks much younger than your father. Like, he's much younger looking than your dad is, even though he's taken his body, and she just sort of believes that it's him. Like, she doesn't question him really, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Still though, cool effect on screen.
Yeah.
Here's this mission of yours, Father. So changed. So cold.
Well, that's because he is cool. He's a cool bastard. He's the master. Yeah. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think what makes the Master a great villain is that he can manipulate people. He can manipulate people like Nissa and Lucy Saxon and ordinary people to do like evil things, like do his bidding, and that's kind of what makes him like a dangerous foe. Is that he can, manipulate good people and make them do the things that he wants to do, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually kind of an emotional, again, continuing the emotional story from the previous story with Nissa. I think that this is the story when she kind of realizes, yeah, her dad is gone. It's the Master instead.
Yeah.
Monitor? My dear.
And it's interesting as well, like that when the Master comes back in the new series, he sort of, he's still sort of, he's still manipulating people. Like, he manipulates Lucy Saxon, and in the end, she ends up shooting the Master because the Master, she realizes that, the Master's just, out for himself. He doesn't care for anyone else. He only cares for himself. And
Yeah,
yeah.
he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, this is kind of an emotional moment where she realizes that her aunt is dead.
Logopolis.
I do like that line. I think that's a good line. I'm going to stop him if it's the last thing I do. Like, he realizes that he might have to sacrifice himself to stop the Master.
Yeah, see, at least they've raised the stakes, but still, I think making it 6 parts may have just added that little bit of pizzazz, so that we would have got the feeling that this is epic, and it would have been a more epic way for Tom to go. But still, this is a good story.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, at least it's good. I mean, it would have been really annoying and disappointing if Tom Baker left on a crap story, because it's his last story and you want it to at least be good. I mean, it's a shame that it's not a classic. It's a shame that it's not an amazing story to end his era on. But I'm glad that he still got a good enough story to end it on, even though, like you said, it could have been a bit more epic. Maybe, like you said, they could have made it 6 parts instead of just your bog standard 4 parts. But yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I will say, even though Anthony Ainley isn't my favorite master, I think he probably is the best master laugh. Like, he does the evil laugh really well.
Yeah, something gets more maniacal as he goes on in the show.
Yeah.
The Watcher.
He's the man on the bridge.
Matthew Waterhouse, just very wet.
A very poor actor, yeah.
Yeah. From what you described, very pompous as well.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the season 19 Blu-ray set, and he's reacting to himself on screen, and he's saying, "Oh, look how handsome I am, and look how much of a good actor I am." And it's like, okay, Matthew, we get it, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was enough time had passed for the fans to accept the new master, and I think Anthony Ainley does a very good job overall. And yeah, he's very good. He made it his own towards the end, definitely.
I think he's probably my third favorite master. Like, I would say Delgado's my favorite, then maybe John Sim, and then Anthony Ainley in third place.
Yeah. I mean, everybody would have their own personal preference, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people that would say Anthony Ainley's their favorite master, which is fair enough. I mean, I personally prefer Delgado, but I do think Ainley did a good job with the part, especially coming after Roger Delgado, who was amazing in the role. And yeah.
Yeah. R.I.P. Roger. We miss you.
But you do not know Logopolis.
The master gets crazier and crazier each time you see him.
Yeah. I mean, I think the master, in this story, and as the classic series goes on, you see the master sort of becoming more desperate, because this is interesting.
His body remains useless. Without it, I could not have conquered the doctor. This is not conquest, it's devastation. It's nothing more than a blanket of silence.
See, this is what's great about Tommy. It's such a range that when he goes dramatic, he can then go funny, and in almost an instant, it would still feel like the Doctor.
Yeah. I like that bit where, Tom Baker's a doctor. He just snapped at the master. He's like, yes! He got really pissed off at the master. And I think that works, You could tell he just, he despises what the master is doing. He just finds the master, a pain in his side because, he's trying to always, cause mayhem and destruction wherever he goes.
Go, Tegan, go. Girl power.
Now, Anthony Ainley said, apparently, according to Janet Fielding, that he could make drinking a cup of tea look evil. I mean, Anthony Ainley, I will say this about him. I mean, he loved playing the master. I mean, he absolutely loved playing that character, and he said that he just wanted to play the master, and he was happy doing that. And him and Tom Baker were really good friends, so nice to have him as the master in this story.
Yeah, and it's his sort of big debut, isn't it?
Yeah. I think he actually steals the show here, Anthony Ainley. I mean, I actually think he might be the best performance of the story. He's just, he's very enthusiastic here. You
Yeah.
can tell he's really enjoying the part.
Yeah, and he's proving himself to the fans and everyone else. I think he does a really good job, Tom Baker. No, not Tom Baker. Anthony Ainley, sorry.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what do you think of his outfit that he wears?
I think his outfit looks pretty good, actually. I like the sort of goldish stuff around his collar. It definitely has a bit of a Reed sort of presence to it.
Yeah. And I think it's like the tracking outfit that he wore. He wore that outfit until Survival, where he changed his outfit. But yeah. He's controlling her.
Missa.
One thing I will say about this story is it's interesting how the Master's trying to control Logopolis, and he accidentally starts off this chain reaction because he's killed all these Logopolitans. The universe is starting to collapse, and he has to team up with a doctor to stop the universe from collapsing in on itself. Oh.
Ooh. Going down.
The universe is collapsing.
Whoopsie. Again, the stakes are being raised higher, so you would think they would be able to go for a longer story, but I guess that's not what they're about anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the story here is quite good, though, like the universe collapsing, and it is interesting to see the Doctor and Master have to team up later on in the story, even though the Doctor can't stand the Master, he has to team up with him, stop the universe from, being destroyed.
Wow. I like the supporting cast. The guy that plays the leader, he's really good.
Yeah. Oh. I don't know about you, but would you agree they've done a good job with all the rubble falling down? It looks like the whole place is actually made out of rock and it's collapsing.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it looks really impressive, and for a TV budget, they've done quite well.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Doctor would rather have a jelly baby than a Scooby snack.
It's actually sad to see the Doctor kind of out of options. He doesn't know how else to beat the Master. He just kind of has to kind of join him for a bit of time and, well, let's just say, be abused.
Oh, who's this? Sorry.
The Doctor.
Yeah. It's interesting that he sort of tears a strip out of all three of them.
Mm.
Yeah. You can tell the Doctor's pissed off with what's happening.
Go. Fuck off, Agonic.
I like this scene where it's to shake the master's hand.
Last.
Oh dear. That's one of the most surprising cliffhangers, isn't it? Because it's the Doctor and the Master. Well, yeah, they were friends, kind of friends when they were younger. To have him form an alliance with the guy that's kind of doing, like, causing all this is it's not the first thing I would have done, but I guess the Doctor is just, like you say, he's accepting his fate that he will have to change to save the universe.
Yeah. Well, I think the Doctor realizes that, you know, the only way he's going to stop the universe from being destroyed is to team up with his enemy and find a way to reverse that. But, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, one more episode of Tom Baker, and then that's it.
Yeah, only 25 minutes left, and then we say goodbye to Tom Baker for the final time as a Fourth Doctor.
Yeah. Again, goes out on a good note. Not a great note, but a good note.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine if the Twin Dilemma was Tom Baker's last story? God.
Well, that would be embarrassing. That's why I think
Yeah.
Tom left at the right time.
Yeah, could you imagine if he stayed on and for another couple of years? Like I could not imagine Tom Baker in a story like the Twin Dilemma. That would have been terrible. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't think that would have been right. I think that would have driven him out.
yeah.
Logopolis.
I mean, Tom Baker was already sort of complaining about the scripts when he was, you know, when he decided to leave. That he was unhappy with some of the decisions he made in some of the scripts. So it was another reason he decided to buy out. But yeah,
I mean, I don't blame him, to be fair.
yeah. Oh.
It's too hard. It is calling to you.
Oh, that shake on it, baby.
Shake it off. Shake it off.
I mean, it is kind of interesting that the Doctor and Master were like friends at the Academy, and then with the the third Doctor and the Master, you could tell they're sort of like frenemies. They respect each other. They both sort of respect and admire each other, but at the same time, the Doctor, he's on the side of good, and the Master is always trying to conquer the world, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, just because he's bored. Oh, the rubble is real.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they've done a good job of the sets here. Like, yeah, everything looks like it's collapsing in itself, and the universe is ending. But yeah,
Of course, the Master just can't live without some kind of destruction.
yeah. It's interesting as well. Like the Master in Series 3, I think that's the first time you see him actually win when he, takes over the world, and he has to talk Lefane, and he ages the Doctor with the laser screwdriver.
Oh, Tom's really trying, He knows this is his last episode, so he's just putting a little bit more effort in, which is great.
Yeah. I mean,
Davison isn't here yet. Just give me a chance to catch my breath.
yeah.
I don't know why Davison has that problem of breathing. Like, I don't know if that was a conscious decision. I'm starting to think it probably was, but it just sounds really weird.
Yeah, someone asked him about that, and apparently he said the reason why he did that was because apparently he was running down a lot of corridors, and it's the reason why, he was doing that, but yeah, I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
The world is dying.
He's dead.
Oh, Master, you've been a bad boy.
I love the fact that the Master is just like, yeah, see you, Doctor. I'm going off in my TARDIS. You can deal this shit yourself. Oh.
Yeah.
What wasted 2 more brilliant lines if we don't do something?
Oh, come on, Tegan. Don't act like you're so close to the Doctor.
Why don't you get me some food? Get me some jelly babies.
Yeah. Well, we've only just met.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Sorry. I'm so tired.
Yeah. Tired
Sorry.
wife?
We kind of dozing a bit, but I've been up since 5 in the morning. So
Oh, really? That early? Sorry,
yeah,
didn't
because of
know
my travel.
that. We were nearly at the end anyway.
Early tomorrow.
Yeah. Mom. Jonna Fielding's pretty good in her first story here. She's pretty good.
Coordinate subsystem. Do that.
No!
Matthew Waterhouse is acting. It's just, it's laughable.
Yeah, it's very, very poor.
While the Master's having a nap, he's just getting a bit tired.
Yeah. I mean, it does show that the Doctor does care, even for scumbags like the Master.
Oh, weird. Huh.
Yeah, well, they've just been taken out of time and space. It's interesting how the Watcher is operating the TARDIS as well. And we find out that he's like a future projection of the Doctor. Mm.
Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue.
Ah. Please release me, let me go. Because I don't love you anymore.
I'm begging you for mercy. Why won't you release me?
K9, the Dawn is your new master now. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing as well that K9 left by this time too, because I don't think K9 would have really worked with the Fifth Doctor, if I'm being honest, but yeah. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, bud. I'm just kind of struggling to stay awake at the moment.
Yeah, I was just saying that I think it's a good thing that K9 was gone by this point, because I don't really think K9 would have worked with the Fifth Doctor, do you?
Yeah, I think so. Gone until further notice. I mean, he'll be back for David Tennant, but only briefly.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, technically, I guess you could say K9's the Fourth Doctor's longest serving companion, because he was in 4 seasons with the Fourth Doctor, but yeah.
I think you're forgetting someone. Come, chameleon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Chameleon is useless.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, though. I mean, he's in an entire season. Technically speaking, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Nissa.
David Nissa.
Oh, I love doing the sketch for the review. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. That was fun. Yeah.
Don Corleone. Let's hug again.
Yeah. I like the look of the Watcher. Like, it kind of looks like a sort of mummified, like white sort of creature, which is kind of interesting. But
Yeah. Ooh, what are they going to do? The Watcher.
he's a peeping Tom.
He's a pervert. Come on, Adric. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think my problem with Adric is just he's just a know-it-all. Like, yeah, yeah. That's because a doctor has experience, been flying the thing for hundreds of years.
Yeah, this is why Adric is just one of the weakest companions. Never listens to anyone, does he?
No, this is a good scene for Nissa.
That must be the entrance.
Well, you better get back in space and time then.
Where's the entrance? I can't see it. It's there.
Let's go into a few more hours there.
Oh dear.
Adric.
Adric. Adric.
Oh, her world's just disappeared.
Stepmother. And my father.
Oh, Nissa.
But now the world that I grew up in.
I feel bad for her. You know, she's lost her. You know, she's lost her. You know, her stepmother.
Yeah.
She's lost her father, and now she's lost tracking. Like, her world's now gone.
Oh, yeah, that is sad. Poor Nissa.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose she experienced losing her planet years before the Doctor did with the Time War.
Yes. That's very, very true, actually.
Yeah. I'm not just a Time Lord. I'm the last of the Time Lords.
This is not just a jelly baby. This is a sugar-free jelly baby.
Well, they're back. Yeah, it's interesting. For the CGI effects, they actually went and shot where that radio control dish was. Like, they were going to for the story, but they couldn't get permission, so they used some model shots of it.
Well, it's better than nothing, I suppose, but yeah, still, I suppose it does take you out of the effect a little bit.
I mean, you know, good model shots. But
Yeah, I mean, with the editing, they've managed to make it work.
Yeah. I wonder where they filmed this. Like, I wonder if they filmed it in like London or outside London, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I mean, it could be London, but I don't think they state it. I mean, they might say it in the credits, but who knows?
Yeah. Who cares? Yeah, I do like that soundtrack.
The Master.
Yeah, Doctor and the Master teaming up. Yeah.
It's like they shot near a school.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it is interesting that the Doctor, he sees the Watcher throughout the story, and he knows he's gonna die. And yeah, same with the 10th Doctor. He knows he's gonna regenerate in that story as well. So
Yeah.
maybe Russell took a little bit of inspiration from the story when he wrote End of Time.
Yeah. Hi, it's Russell. Just gonna stick and stealing your new ideas. Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's also funny that End of Time is the Master as the main villain in that as well. So, yeah.
Uh-oh. Oh, the Doctor and the Master's confrontation in this episode is great. Wish the whole story was like that.
Yeah. I like how the Doctor just, the Master's about to use his tissue compression eliminator, and the Doctor just throws it away. He just doesn't believe in violence. He stops the Master from hurting the guards or killing them. Yeah.
Tom Baker.
Yeah, not long before the fourth Doctor croaks it.
Go on, Tom. Kick his ass, Paul.
Can you imagine that the Doctor just strangled the Master with his scarf?
Yeah, that would be very strange.
Be pretty dark. There he goes. There he runs. Run, run, run like a rabbit.
Run, Forrest, run.
Yeah. It'd be weird if you had Tom Hanks as the Doctor.
God, yeah, that would be a little strange, but this is great. It's the building up to this big fight.
Yeah. The Master's going to trick the Doctor. Yeah. I mean, why can't you just be a nice guy for once, Master? Oh.
I'm sorry.
From here, charge vacuum equipment is aligned with the constellation Cassiopeia. 3C461. I decided to use my TARDIS upgrade. 3C461.
So now the Master can control the universe.
Yeah.
You see, Doctor, I overlooked.
Yeah, Anthony Ainley's actually a lot better in this story than I remembered him to be. I always thought he was kind of a bit over the top, but no, he's actually quite grounded in this story.
Yeah. I think it's one of his best performances, up there with Survival. And yeah, I think it's more in the Fifth Doctor's era where he hams it up. Here, like you said, he's a lot more grounded. He's not camping it up as much,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he does camp it up in the future, it's kind of a lot of it is reflected in the story that he gets, and obviously the shape of the show at the time was very uneven.
Yeah.
And they thought with Davison they could sort of manage to find a consistent tone, but they never did. As far, well, not for the rest of the classic series anyway.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's all bad. Of course it isn't, but you just expect a little bit more.
Yeah. The Master's speech here. This is interesting.
Russell used that in the Sound of Drums, didn't he?
Yeah, well, the Master says, "People of the Earth, please listen carefully.
So it
Yeah.
works. Congratulations, Doctor. I always knew you'd do it.
This is where the master stabs him in the back.
More than a humble assistant.
Hmm.
It's time you can go and explain the presence of your
Get
friend.
out.
There's a hubbub outside. I'm still there. That not. And it could happen so easily.
This is when the doctor realizes. Yeah.
Single recursive pass down that cable and
The universe is cracked. The Pandorica will open.
humble assistant could do it.
I do like that Tom Baker where he's like, "Oh, you're mad." Like,
Follows is vital to the future of the war. The choice of the war is simple.
It's quite a big radio tower.
yeah. So basically, he's holding the universe at ransom now. Go on, Doctor. Stop this fucker.
This is definitely one of the most entertaining Doctor and Master confrontations, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, this is when the Doctor becomes quite brave. He's gonna rip out that cable to stop the Master. Oh shit!
This is it. The final fight. I mean, the effects are quite dated by this point, but still, I think it because it's Tom's last story, and it's, you know, back in 1981.
Yeah. Oh shit! Doctor's gonna fall to his death.
Yep. I think Davison knew taking this role, he'd have a very tough act to follow.
Yeah. This is when the Doctor decides to destroy the cable to stop the Master from destroying the universe.
Although the actual cause of his regeneration is somewhat different to that. It's him falling, isn't it?
Yeah, falling to his death, yeah. Well, I mean, at least the Doctor did the heroic thing at the end, you know, saving the universe. But yeah. Oh shit!
Ooh. I mean, the fact that the companions are just standing there is kind of stupid. Like, you would think they would go and help him. You know.
I do love all these flashbacks to his previous enemies, like the Master, the Dalek, the Pirate Captain, Stavros, the Cyberman, Sontarans, Zygons. I think it works really well to have these flashbacks before he regenerates. You see the Black Guardian there as well, from Key to Time. But yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite a nice little emotional hook to sort of bring his era full circle and kind of end his time.
Yeah, lol, full circle. That's another story in this season.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone.
It is a bit slapdash the way the Master just kind of leaves, though. They could have elongated that a bit.
Yeah. I actually really like the final moments here before the Fourth Doctor regenerates. I really love the flashbacks to Sarah Jane, to Harry, Romana, and everything, and the music. I think it works really well, and yeah. And Tom Baker's acting here is actually really good. Like that blank expression that he gives, you actually feel that he's dying.
Yeah, he really plays up the sort of the horror of his of the death, and like you say, seeing all the companions' faces is just. That's another emotional moment there.
Yeah.
The moment has been prepared for.
I think that's a really great final line for him to go out on. And I really love this regeneration effect, like how he regenerates into the Watcher and then into Davison. I think it's my favorite regeneration effect. It's aged really well.
Yeah. The music is nice as well, very moving.
Yeah. Oh, goodbye, Tom. There he is. There's Davison.
Oh, that was good. It was a lot quicker than I remembered it to be. It seemed to go by very quickly, the ending, but they could have probably held out the moment a bit longer. But for what it is, it's pretty good. You know, Tom could have had a much worse exit. But yeah, that's it. Logopolis, the final story for Tom Baker, and the end of the Mammoth era of Doctor Who. So, Jack, I guess I'll turn to you because Tom's your favourite Doctor, and now's your chance to tell us why and what you think of this story.
Yeah, well, I think I think this is a pretty good story to end Tom Baker on. I don't think it's perfect. I do have a couple of issues. I think maybe introducing Tegan in this story was unnecessary. Like, I think they should have just waited until Davison's first season to introduce her into the show. And I do think, maybe it could have been longer. It could have been 6 parts, I think, because it's Tom Baker's last story. That they could have, made it a longer story. And I do think maybe there is a bit of, padding in the first part. But overall, as a story, I think I think it's pretty good. I think the pacing for it is very good. I like the fact that they brought back the Master. This is the first full story with Anthony Ainley as the Master. I mean, he briefly appeared as the Master at the end of Keeper Tracking, but this is the first story of him as the Master, and I think he leaves a very good impression here. I like the whole story itself, the idea of things coming to an end, the Doctor seeing the Watcher, which is a future projection of himself, and he realizes that he's going to regenerate, and I like the storyline of how the Master accidentally causes the universe to start to collapse, and then he has to team up with the Doctor, and they have to stop it. And then, of course, the Master at the end, he double crosses the Doctor, and the Doctor, he manages to save the universe, but at the cost of his own life, he regenerates. And I think it's a pretty good send off for Tom. I think Tom is pretty good in this story. It's not his best performance ever, but he's still, I think, very solid. He's still very good in this story, and he played the part for 7 years, 7 seasons. I mean, he's the longest serving actor to play the Doctor, and I think for me, he's definitely the best Doctor. I mean, I didn't grow up with him as a Doctor. Eccleston was the first Doctor I saw, but watching the classic series, Tom Baker quickly became a favorite Doctor, and I think it's because not just the stories, but I think he always gave very good performances. I definitely think he captured that alien aspect of the Doctor. His Doctor is very eccentric, and what I love about his Doctor is he's very humorous, but he can also be very serious as well. He'll be joking one minute, and then the next minute he's deadly serious. And I just think Tom Baker he gave it his all in the role. I mean, he really loved the parts. He absolutely adored playing, the character of the Doctor, and I think you could tell throughout his 7 years that he just absolutely adored the part. And he had some great companions like Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith, Louise Jameson as Leela, K9, Romana 1 and Romana 2, and of course, you had Adric and Nissa and Tegan towards the very end. So he had some really great companions. He had the longest era of the show. I mean, 7 seasons and 42 stories. I mean, that is a huge chunk of the show, and I think he did a great job. I mean, I think he did a really fantastic job as the Doctor, and I think Davison had a tough act to follow, and I think Tom Baker really left. I think Tom Baker really left a lasting impression on the show. I mean, even today, 40 years after this story came out, he's still considered by many fans to be one of the best, if not the best Doctor, and he's still
the definite
immensely
article, you might say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's still immensely popular as a Doctor. I mean, you know, his Doctor, had Jelly Babies, K9, the long scarf. So many iconic things that are part of the show today come from his era. Like Davros, which was introduced in his era, and Jelly Babies and K9. A lot of stuff that's still, you know, part of the show's history and still in the show today. So I just think Tom Baker was great as a Doctor, and for his last season and his last story, I think he got a solid exit. I mean, it's not you know an amazing exit. I do wish he got a exit that was amazing. That I would have loved him to go out in a story like something like Case of Androzani. But I think, overall, it's a pretty solid ending to his era. And I do like, I think my favourite scene would probably be the final 5 minutes where you have the flashback to all his enemies and you have the music and you have the flashback of all his companions. And, he says, oh, it's the end, but the moment has been prepared for. And, he regenerates into Davison. And I really love that effect when he turns into the Watcher and then into Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor. So I think the final 5 minutes are really emotional and really great send off for him. But like I said, I don't think it's perfect. I think there are a few issues with it, which I've already said, like introducing Tegan and and maybe like it could have been a bit longer. But I still think it's a pretty solid story for him to end on. So I'm going to close off. I'll give Logopolis a respectable 8 out of 10.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, well, Tom Baker, amazing Doctor. That's the best way to describe him. He was amazing in this role, and he was my mum's Doctor growing up. She watched Doctor Who with Tom Baker, and he definitely touched the hearts and the minds of many of the Whovians, and still does today. And his efforts in the show were timeless. I mean, 7 years, 7 seasons. Wow. I mean, obviously the quality, varies across the seasons, but he always had such a love for this part. Even if the show was changing around him and, things were happening that he wasn't a fan of, he still gave everything to the part. And I really appreciate that. And I think you could tell in his last season he was getting a little bit fed up with all the changes and everything that was happening, but he still tried to give his best. But clearly he felt he wasn't fitting in with this new makeup of the show and with this new younger cast, and I guess he felt very out of place, and also J&T made it very difficult for him to continue. I mean, he knew he would have to have left eventually, but I think when he was making the Leisure Hive, did he realize, yeah, this is probably the time to go, to call it a day now. The 7th season is definitely the last, and yeah. But as for Logopolis, it's a good story. I don't think it's a great story. It could have been a lot better, but it could have been far worse as well. I think it's a pretty solid story. It does sort of build up quite well. I like the planet of Logopolis. The sets look really good, and the spectacle is amazing. Especially the Doctor and the Master's final fight on the radio tower is pretty cool. Although it does end a bit abruptly, I'll say that, and the Master leaving is a bit abrupt. And obviously the regeneration is very sad. It's, a very sad moment. And I like the way they tied it together with the faces of the companions and the monsters that he'd faced. And because it was such a long era, I think they had to do something to really sort of tug on the heartstrings. And his final line, it's very good. It's very nice, when he says, "Oh, it is the end, but the moment has been prepared for." Like, he's accepting death now, and it's, the whole concept of the Watcher is interesting because it's him, it's him kind of passing on to another life, and there's something quite beautiful about that, and it's really sad. And I thought that was very sad the way Tom went, and the music for that was really good. And obviously Davison appears at the end and has his little cameo. But yeah, the story does suffer from Tegan's introduction. I think it was badly timed. I think Tegan should have been introduced in the next story, Castrovalva, because this is like the very last story in Tom's era. So why even establish any kind of dynamic with the Fourth Doctor and Tegan? It's just pointless. I also think Nyssa was kind of pointless, but at least we'd already seen her in The Keeper of Traken. But still, I think Tegan and Nyssa should have been saved probably for Davison, when Davison started his time as the Doctor. Adric is okay. Matthew Waterhouse, he's okay in this one. He has a couple of cringy moments, but it's not his worst performance. I'll say that. But there's no rapport with him and the Doctor. It's nice to see the sort of gardens of the TARDIS. That's kind of cool and interesting. And Anthony Ainley as the Master. I don't think this is his best performance, but I think it's a pretty good one. It's a good start, but I think that he will go on to do a lot better as his time in the show goes on, particularly in his last story, Survival. But it's a good introduction, and it's good that he got to face Tom Baker just before Tom left the show. So yeah, and it's 4 parts long. I do agree with Jack. I think it could have been longer. It could have been 6 parts. They could have, they missed an opportunity to make it more epic. And I think because Tom has such a long era, this story deserved to be longer. And I think it was justified to have an epic runtime. But oh well, we didn't get that. We got a 4-part story, but still 4 parts is okay. It moves along fairly well, and you're not going to be bored watching it, so that's good. And the manipulation of scale is also really good. The way they shrink things down and everything, that's really cool. I don't have anything else to say. I think I'd probably agree with Jack. I'd give this story an 8 out of 10. It's good, but it's a solid ending to Tom's era. But it could have been stronger. It could have been worse. It could have, would have, should have. Doesn't matter. Tom Baker is an amazing Doctor, and when he actually does pass away in real life, that will be very, very sad for Whovians. And for me, he's the second best Doctor. My favorite Doctor is David Tennant, but Tom Baker will always have a special place for me as well. I watched all of his era last year, and it was a real treat and a real pleasure to watch it. It was such a great legacy of TV. It was a big moment in television history when Tom Baker left the role of Doctor Who, and I don't think Tom thought he would ever leave at some point. Well, he probably knew he would, but he never wanted to go deep down. But I think that, it was just the hand that life dealt him. He got this amazing part and he carried it for 7 years, but his good times were eventually going to run out, and that's sad to see, but fuck you, JNT. But never mind. It is what it is. It is one of the better stories in this season as well, which is great. And I have to say the Blu-ray transfer quality is fantastic. And now I have the season on DVD. Well, I have it on Blu-ray. So it would be great to rewatch it from beginning to end. So, yeah, that's that. Is there anything else you want to say, Jack, before we finish?
Just thought, it's been good doing this commentary, and 40 years since Tom Baker left, and he's definitely my favorite Doctor. I know a lot of people would say Troughton's their favorite or Tennant's their favorite, but for me, Tom Baker is the best Doctor, and I think 7 years, that's a great legacy, and he's still playing a Doctor today in Big Finish, which is great. So even though he's left the show 40 years now, he's still a Doctor in Big Finish, which I'm thankful for. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, actually. It's nice to see Big Finish have kept some of the old Doctors alive. Even Christopher Eccleston, who we will talk about at some point on this live broadcast. But anyway, I think we'll call it there. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching and listening to us go on. And what do you think of Logopolis? Please comment down below. Let us know. What do you think of Tom Baker as the Doctor? And do you think this is a great exit for him? And stay tuned next time for more commentaries. So I'm Mr. TARDIS 11. This is Jack the Film Fanatic. See you soon. Bye for now.